2, 3, 4, 5.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. Right-hand man. Yeah. Good morning. Thank you all for coming this morning. It's an important day for us. We were in here 14 months ago talking about our response to 2004, and in a way this concludes the investigation part of what happened in 2004. I think the most important thing that the township wants to convey today is that there will be, has been, and will not be any shadow cast over what happened. It's been and will continue to be full transparency on behalf of the township. There will be no curtain placed over what happened. If you look back to what we said in 2004, we said we were manipulated, we were duped by Nassar. We said that we should have consulted a medical expert. We said that we should have turned the report over to Ingham County Prosecutor's Office. We also said that we were not able to release the report based on what the Attorney General and Ingham County Prosecutor had instructed us. We provided in this investigation, as a result of what we said, we fast forward now 14 months later to the conclusion of this report. This report was provided by Ken Ouellette. It's important to know that Ken Ouellette is a retired lieutenant chosen by Brian Randall with no input from the township. This was totally her choice on who she had performed the investigation. Ken is a retired lieutenant. In his last 5 years that the East Lansing Police Department was in charge of internal affairs. We were fully cooperative, as it's presented in this report, with the investigator. And the findings are really, in most ways, emulate what we said in 2004. Yes, we should have contacted a medical expert to verify Nassar. Yes, we should have sent it on to the county. Yes, we were manipulated. And I think we did provide the emails in this investigation from the county prosecutor and from the Attorney General's office that said we could not release the report. There are many other things that are contained in the report, but what's most important is that we continue to focus on taking what happened in 2004 and making things better in our community in many ways. And we're going to talk about that this morning, what we have done, what we're going to continue to do. This is not the end. It's the end of the investigation part. It's the end of looking back, but we're going to look out the windshield instead of the rearview mirror as we move forward. I'd like Chief Plaga, who I promoted to Chief of Police just 10 months ago, I'd like him to come up and talk about what we've done and what we're going to do going forward based on what we know. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Sergeant McCready and a little bit about Breanne. And also, you have Breanne's statement that's been provided to you as well. So with that, I'd like Chief Plaga to come up and address you.
Thank you, Frank. The 2004 investigation of the Breanne Randall's assault, along with the township's work with Breanne Randall Gay, has had a profound effect on the police department. It has put into motion several things, and it needs to be understood that these things aren't window dressing. These are things that we are doing, that we have done, and we will continue to do. We did a review from 2000 going forward of all sexual assault complaints. We provided training, the most up-to-date and informed training for all of our sworn police officers and how to handle and investigate criminal sexual assault complaints. And then we also worked with Breanne Randall and community members to develop an outreach program for prevention and awareness about sexual assault and abuse. We continue to work through training. We have an investigator, Detective Becky Payne, is assigned to investigate criminal sexual assaults. We've assigned a second investigator to help with those investigations. Christy Lysick is now involved. We are looking in the summer of 2019, before the school year starts, to offer more of the outreach and training to the community members for awareness and prevention, so that people are aware and can hopefully prevent something like this from happening again. We can never let something like this ever happen again. We work with our partners in the community, advocates for survivors of sexual assault, to make sure that we're performing best practices and doing what's necessary to support those. And we continue to provide training on victim-centered, offender-focused investigation techniques that are also trauma-informed, that take into effect the effects of trauma on survivors of sexual assault. Mr. Walsh?
Thank you, Chief. Sergeant McCready, he's been the subject of review for the last 14 to 16 months. He's been with us since 2000. He just celebrated his 19th year of service to the township. I can tell you how Andrew has been deeply, deeply compassionate towards Breanne. I mean, they've had some private conversations. Sergeant McCready is a good man. Sergeant McCready is a good officer. We fully support him. What happened in 2004 was completely amiss. But as we look at his totality of his work over the last 19 years, he is and remains a good and solid member of our department. I hope as a community and as a department we can continue to support him. I appreciate his involvement in the investigation. It's not something that he had to do, but he did it. Breanne, you know, as of 11:15 last night, we were still texting each other back and forth. The most important thing that came out of all of this was the relationship that we developed with her. This has been all about her, not about the township, not about anything else, and making what happened right. You know, we live with, think about this, we live with what would have happened in 2004 and going forward if we'd have got it right. We live with the fact of all the young women who were manipulated by Nassar after 2004. We carry that every day. But all we can do is continue to support Breanne, and we'll do that. And we'll support her work that she started and initiated in our community that Chief Plaga just talked about going forward in 2019 and in 2020 and beyond. Call it Breanne's Law, call it whatever you want. But we're going to continue our efforts in the state and in the region to help not only victims, but also help law enforcement to be better when it comes to noticing, preventing, and reporting sexual assaults. You know, I've talked to a number of people who have been sexually assaulted, and one thing's clear, there's never closure. And we don't expect this report to be closure for Breanne, but we do hope it's a pathway to healing for her. But as far as the township is concerned, our investigative work is over. Our total focus will now be on making things better. Our supervisor, in case you have any questions after the fact, our supervisor, Ron Stike, is here in the back of the room. Trustee Pat Jackson and Treasurer Phil DeSheen are in the front row as well, in the event that you have any questions. With that, we would open it up to questions that you may have at this time. Ling has the traveling microphone and would be happy to, if you have any questions, please use the microphone. Any questions? If there, yes.
Can you just run us through the timeline of when you were allowed to release the report? I don't know if that's relatively close to today, but I know that the Attorney General had asked people not to do that for a while. What was the timeline there?
We knew in September, around the 16th or 19th, it's in the report, that we had a case going back to 2004. There are emails in here dating back to September 2004, around the weekend of the 16th and 19th from the prosecutor's office and the AG's office saying that you have to hold the report. It's part of the investigation. You can't release it. And that lasted all the way until January 22nd of 2018. It was a Tuesday, I believe. And at that point, we contacted, Breanne had just testified in front of Judge Aquilina, and we contacted the AG's office and said, you know, we just can't hold on to this any longer. There was some conversation about continuing to hold it, and we decided at that time to go on our own and release it. You know, we did a lot of things on our own that probably were a little out of the norm here. By contacting Breanne on Friday, the January 19th, there were a lot of people who said maybe it wasn't in our best interest to contact her. We called her. We flew her here from Seattle so she could face Nassar and be in front of Judge Aquilina. We met with her. We then engaged with her on a community program throughout 2018. We consulted with her. Our goal has been from day one, develop a relationship with Breanne Randall Gay and make it a positive outcome for all. That was the most important goal for us. Anyone else? Yes.
In your review of the cases since 2000, I guess, did you see any patterns that were of concern to you, any similar to what happened in Breanne's case?
So in the review of the cases from 2000 going forward, we did open 7 other cases because there was potential other work that could have been done. Not necessarily not going to the prosecuting attorney's office, but the development or statements from potential other witnesses. Those cases are still continuing to be open, and there are search warrants that are being sought We're seeking out some of these other potential witnesses so that we can get a full picture of what happened, but nothing that mirrors what happened with Brianne's case.
You said that you've been working with Randall on some programs. What is that program exactly?
So Brianne attended held several meetings here at the Township Hall along with other community members. There was board members that were also involved in developing awareness training. Darkness into Light, we provided 3 training sessions that were all very well attended by community members, which provided indicators and how to identify potential children that are victims of abuse, and then also what perpetrators also might look like or behave, so that citizens, community members could identify potential victims and or suspects and provide that information to the proper authorities. And those programs we're going to continue on here in the future. Also, there was quite a bit of media that was released. I was at a coffee shop, and one of the posters to bring awareness was in the coffee shop, the library, the treasurer's office has one at the counter. So those are the types of things, just to make this aware to the community.
I know that you said you stand by McCleary, but was there any disciplinary action that's been taken at all since this came out?
No, and I'll tell you why. Although we have deep, deep regret about what happened, although I think it's made us a better department, I know it's made us a better department, it's made us a better community, and I think Brianne knows how much we care about her and what happened. But when I look at that decision rests with me and me solely, and when I looked and completed a manager's review, I investigated from A to Z what happened back in January. I didn't have some external department come in, law enforcement department, review a law enforcement situation. I wanted to take that responsibility myself, and I reviewed everything that happened, because at the end of the day, I had to make a decision in conjunction with former Chief Hall about if any disciplinary action was going to happen. When I look at 19 years of service, when I look at all of the sexual assault complaints he's handled, Sergeant McCready, when I look at his work with homicides in this community, when I take a look at the totality of 19 years, I am not going to issue, recommend, or implement any discipline against someone who's got a great career that he's had, minus what happened in September 2004. I've been in city and township government for 30 years, and I've made big mistakes along the way, bad decisions, and I would hope people would look back and look at my 30 years rather than an isolated incident here or there.
So I know you guys said you were moving forward, but like just based off Brianne's statement here, there's 3 issues that she addressed, as well as saying that she's angry but sympathetic. What can you say at all to some of those concerns that she still has even after the independent investigation?
I support everything she said in her statement. I think she was open, honest, and transparent without curtains and no shadows, and that's what's really going to help us all heal. And I'm thankful for her statement. I think the most important thing that Brianne has said is that she wants to see her work continue in the community. And in my private conversations with her, that's been most important. And as Chief Plog has indicated today, and I hope I have as well, we're going to continue that work well beyond the original goal that we had of 2018. We have some of the finest investigators in sexual assault in the back room here. We've done training for law enforcement across the state. We've done training in the community. We've done a lot of things, and we're going to continue doing those. So are we a better department than what we were in 2004 when this occurred? Absolutely. And that's the good thing to come out of this. But I appreciated reading her heartfelt statement. I couldn't disagree with anything she wrote. You're welcome.
Can you give some concrete examples of what's changed in terms of how you investigate sexual assault cases?
Well, the first thing I want to mention is that all sexual assault cases come through my office, and that's where the buck stops. My predecessor, Dave Hall, implemented that when we started, and that will continue on. Policies have been put in place that outline the responsibility of the supervisory role of reviewing cases and making sure that cases are completed and that there's no stones left unturned. So there are policies in place about the practices. I review all sexual assault cases before they can be closed, and we are providing ongoing training in the best practices that are recognized nationally as to how to investigate a sexual assault case, focusing on what the victim says, but focusing our investigative process on the suspect themselves, and realizing and having a comprehensive understanding of what trauma can do to somebody once they've experienced it, and how recollection can be a little disjointed. And those are the important things that we've started to train all of our people on.
So in 2018, when the criminal sexual conduct initiatives were started in the township, Brianne was under a consultation agreement. Is there any talk to continuing bringing Brianne on to continue the program she's doing, or how is that going to continue if she is not on board?
There have been no discussions. I don't think there will be. I think that the consulting arrangement that we had is behind us. I think that's probably, with her living in Washington and raising a family, I think that's probably where we're going to end up. How do we continue moving those forward? That's a good question. One thing that when I appointed, there was many opportunities that I had to appoint Chief Plaga as chief. I want you all to know where I did it. I did it up in Charlevoix, Michigan, at a restaurant, and at the table was the Michigan Prosecuting Attorney's Office, Michigan State Police, Chief Plaga, and Brianne. And at that time, I notified the chief that I was promoting him, then assistant chief to chief. I did that for a reason. I did that because the importance of what happened, and I wanted Brianne to know just how important that was. And she knows full well, thankfully, that we're going to continue her work, not only in the community, but taking it to the schools and taking it to law enforcement across the state. We're fully committed to doing that. And I will hold Chief Plaga accountable to make sure that happens. And he's aware of that. Anything else? All right, I think you have everything. If you need any, there's folks in the room, if you have any additional questions or anything like that, we really appreciate you being here today. And this concludes our press conference. Thank you very much.